Official Jets podcast is presented by WynnBET. Betting is a team sport. Bet together at WynnBET. We are taping here at One Jets Drive up in Audi Performance Studio a couple days after the 2023 season came to a conclusion. Eric Allen, Bart Scott, and Nick Mangold, of course.
Hello.
Bart, 7-10 overall for these Jets in 2023. I look at this in terms of a 3-year span because the first year of this Robert Saleh, Joe Douglas regime, the partnership, you totally flip the roster. You go 4-12. The second year, you take some steps forward. You go 7-10, and then this year, 7-10 again, despite playing with the 4 different quarterbacks and having Aaron Rodgers for 3 offensive plays / 4 snaps.
Yeah, I mean, it was discouraging because there was so many high expectations, and you feel like they all went away when Aaron Rodgers went down. But then you find yourself winning that game, so then you have new life in what they did before the bye. You know, you thought, well, maybe we can get it done, and yeah, we understand that maybe the Super Bowl might be out of realistic goals, but we can get to the postseason, and maybe we can make some noise and be the team that nobody wants to play. And that just fell short, right? And it fell short because of a multitude of reasons: health, quarterback play. When everything goes wrong, nobody did a good enough job, and they have to go back to the table. But the good thing and the positive thing that came out of this season was you had guys take the next step. Yeah. So whether you talk about Jermaine Johnson taking the next step, you talk about Breece Hall taking the next step, showing that he can make it through an entire season. And this wouldn't be one of those things where he's an often injured star with a lot of potential. You look at what Garrett Wilson did. You look at what Quincy did, right? You look and you can go on and go on, and you're hoping that you can project that the amount of guys that took that jump this year, that you can have the same amount of guys take the jump next year. When you look at guys like Will McDonald, as you're going to have to graduate a couple of guys through some tough decisions to be made on the roster. We all know 35% of the roster doesn't come back, and there's going to be some tough decisions. But you hope and you believe that they can make the right decisions. And, for the guys that graduate, you wish them well. And you go out and you try and, improve this roster.
Mr. Mangold, what is your take on not just offensive line injuries for the New York Jets, but as Robert Saleh termed it, it's a pandemic throughout the National Football League. What is happening as far as the injuries up front?
I think the biggest thing, and I'm sure the PA isn't going to like it, but, the reduced practice time is hurting everybody in general. And I think what you're seeing coming out of college is that kids aren't as prepared as they need to be. And so now not having the same amount of practice time to get them into the right mind frame and the right mindset of how to practice like a professional, and the hitting in August training camp. When you're not hitting anybody, your body doesn't get used to having to fall down, having to deal with a little ache, a little pain here and there, and how to get through that. So I think the reduced practices that started in 2011 with the New Deal, you're now seeing that 10 years, 11 years later, how that's affecting the big guys up front, because they don't have – the football is a game that you can't, especially for offensive linemen, you can't be out running around on the field and then go play in a game and be like, oh, yeah, I'm in football. There's football shape. There's workout shape and there's football shape. And the only way you get into football shape is actually playing football. And so I think that as an unintended consequence of what was fought for those lesser practices. And that's what we're seeing. So it's disappointing, as a guy who played the position, and especially with the injuries, because a lot of times injuries aren't your fault. They're just a freak accident that happens, and it stinks. And so to have that happen as much as it is around the league, knowing guys aren't being able to perform to their highest level and show what they can do is disappointing.
I couldn't agree with Nick more, right? And when we fought for that, or people fought for that, it was fighting for the wrong thing, right? Because, football, the reason, like, and Vince Lombardi said it, right, it's the best subject being taught because it's the only thing in which we can't make easy. and then we go out and we try and make it easy, right? And you can say, okay, I'm simulating, I'm hitting dummies and all that stuff, but that doesn't get you ready for what you got to do on Sunday. So now what happens is it's the law of diminishing returns, right? You're not putting anything in, so you're not getting anything out, right? And it's about building a callus, right? You don't prepare for a mile run by running a mile. You run 2 miles. You don't prepare for the 100 by running 100. You run the 200. Right, so you can build that callus, that strength, that endurance. Right, we see it happening all throughout sports. Right, it's funny. You look at baseball, like a guy like Nolan Ryan. Right, pitch full complete games. Now guys can't go past 6 innings. Right, because they're trying to do things and make it easy, and life isn't easy. But that's a microcosm to me of society. We try and make everything microwavable, instant, and it doesn't work that way. So what happens is now, because you don't have the practice time, now the product is diluted, because when you go to the backup, you barely have time to let the backup practice because you got to try and get the starter ready because you got limited time. So then when the backup get it there, then the product is horrible. This has been the worst football that I've seen in years. Yes, as a whole, it is horrible. It is not high-end football being played. You see guys can't run the ball, don't know how to move guys away. You don't see the football acumen. Right? You see guys come in, and all you have to do is look at the product and listen to some of the greats. Don't listen to me. Look at what Tom Brady is saying, right? The execution, right? The gamesmanship, you know what I mean, of coming. You got 4 or 5, you got maybe 5 or 6 teams that play football at a high level, and when you look at them, they're all guys that got old school guys. Whether you talk about Kansas City and Andy Reid, whether you talk about Mike Tomlin, right? That's why he can play with a lesser roster and win. You talk about the Ravens and what John Harbaugh does, plays that physical brand of football. You talk about Kyle Shanahan, who, even though he's younger, is from the old school, right? So you look at all these new coaches that come in, like these guys can't execute because these guys can't stay healthy, and they have rosters in which guys come from these spread offenses, and it comes down to when you have to try and move a man against his will, and you don't know how because you don't get enough practice doing it, knowing how to scoop block. That's why the teachers are winning right now. That's why Bill Callahan can get that offensive line when they're on their 5th and 6th offensive lineman, because he's a teacher. And no matter what, he'll take the physicality out and give you the mental stuff and give you the mental reps and say, we're not doing this, and get guys out there early and get them to come out and practice and work on technique. Right? With technique, if we're not going to go against this defensive line, we about to service ourselves, but we're going to get ready. We're going to hit each other.
It's going to be interesting, as it is every offseason, how the Jets are going to attack the chess pieces up front along that offensive line, because we just taped television show, CBS, Jets Game Day with Robert Saleh, and we're talking about foundational pieces. You like what you saw out of Joe Tippmann early. I know you're really high. I think you both are really high on Elijah Vera Tucker. But then Langston Tomlinson's been a constant. He was the one constant up front. There are some decisions to be made, obviously, at the tackle position.
Yeah, it's going to be a big offseason, I think, for Joe Douglas and how he attacks this offensive line and the struggles that they've had keeping guys healthy. And I think, that's a big thing that they really need to look at, is how they can keep guys healthy. Because, offensive lines are best when it's 5 guys in the same position for the whole year.
Yeah.
If you can get that done, that's huge. And I know that from experience. I think we were able to pull it off for 2 straight years. It was me, Brick, Alan Faneca, Brandon Moore, and Damian Woody for 2 straight years. So you have 32 games where you only had 5 guys playing. And so that was, and you get to a point, like Brandon and I played together for 8 years. I think it was 8 years. You get to a point where we don't have to make calls to each other because we know. I knew what he was thinking. He knew what I was thinking. It's time in the meeting rooms. It's film study, watching the same thing, seeing it, being able to see the plays happen in the same eyes. 2 different guys with same eyes. So to have that ability, to have that continuity is huge. And so I think that's going to be big on Joe Douglas, of figuring out, what's going on, what went wrong, and try to fix that. But also get guys here that will stay here. And that doesn't go just for offensive line. I think it goes for team culture as well. You look at longest tenured guys on the team, and the list is not long. And I think that shows, where we have come from in a drafting world, that we haven't been able to keep guys here for a long time. When I first came in, you had guys here like Brian Thomas. Brian Thomas was here for 11 years or so.
Yeah.
Big Cat, Sean Ellis. He was a long-term guy. And Brandon Moore, long-term guy. Chad Pennington was here, for a good amount. But you have these guys that are around that know what it's like to be in this locker room, in this market, in this city. And I think that goes a long way. When your longest tenure guys 4 years, that's not the experience that you can pass down for
culture.
new guys coming in. And I think that makes it tricky. You look at Brick and I were here for 10 and 11 years. Having that constant stability and finding guys who can do that, because it's not just, being like, oh, well, this guy's been here, so we're going to keep him, but he's done well enough to keep him. And so that goes in your scouting department and everything. So it's going to be, that's a big thing that I've noticed, looking, over the past couple of years, is that you need to find guys who are going to stay here.
Yeah. When you think about offensive lines and those who have the best, you think about staples, right? And you talk about, like, the Jets don't have a $100 million guy, right? You don't have the big money guy. Right, you look at all the good lines, they got a guy that, hey, we pay you to be the war daddy here. And we're going to hold you accountable to stay healthy and to play at a high level. Whether you talk about Trent Williams out there, now you talk about Penei Sewell or what is it, Renfrew or whatever his name is for the Lions. Yeah, right. You talk about Lindsey down in Atlanta, right? You talk about, Slater, but before that it was Corey Lindsey in with the Chargers. Right. We don't have a guy that, okay, he was brought in, wasn't drafted or whatever. Maybe he was drafted, but he got paid the money. Like, so you talk about where the money is spent on this team. It's, Langton came in. That was a very, team friendly, type of deal. I'm talking about paying a war daddy to come here, or Trent Williams, where you make him $100 million man. We need one of those guys that we can hold accountable, that we can say, this is our anchor. Everything works off of him. We can slide and leave him on the island, and he's going to dominate the best athlete. That left tackle, we're going to win that side every time. It's time for them to invest in that guy. Before they paid, this guy, before they paid the Brickershaw, they paid Faneca. They paid Woody to come in. They put money, real money in it. And, the results were amazing, right? And Brandon Moore was the guy that they developed. Who knows? Is that Carter Warren that they developed? Is that Vera Tucker that they developed? Who is it that they develop? So you got a guy that's like a no-name guy. You can go all the way back. You can go all the way back to even to when I played with the Ravens, right? Drafted Suggs. Ray was the guy. I was the guy that they developed. Mm-hmm. But before me, it was Ed Hartwell. They developed. And it was a rotating place, right? Before that, it was Jamie Sharper. They developed, right? You got to have like a mixture of like developing guys, because it always rotates, because, as guys go out, and they did a good job on the pass rushers, right? When you think about, they developed Huff.
Oh yeah.
Right. And they may be able to keep him, slap him with the franchise tag, or he may graduate out, but that's fine, because now you got to bring in McDonald, make him that guy. And then who's going to be the guy that replaces Huff as a guy that comes from nowhere that you develop? And it may take 2 or 3 years, but then you get him for 3 and 4. And it's like, man, this guy's going to get paid, right? That's how you have to have it going. There's got to be a constant turnover of guys that you develop. It's got to be guys that stay long-term, and there's guys that come from out, that comes here just to specifically win for a year or two. That's how it's done.
How much does Aaron Rodgers change the culture? Not him being here a Jet, but actually being here every day and leading the team on Sundays. How much can he help change the culture?
I thought that was a big move on his part, and I think that is shows his commitment, I think, to this team, that, he stuck around, because there are a lot of guys who end up going on IR who disappear, and, you don't see them until the next offseason.
Yeah,
so
we can see a couple. All
right. Go ahead. Let him finish.
And I think that's a big thing of a guy that wants to help out, wants to change, and wants to make guys better. I remember when I got put on IR, I think I had like 5 weeks left. And I was still here in the meetings, watching the film and standing out of practice. They didn't let me on the sidelines because I was in a boot and couldn't protect myself. But, it was one of those things that you want to be here to try to help. And when you have guys who want to do that, it's huge for the organization.
He's completely old school. I know people pay attention to a lot of the things that Rodgers brings to the table, whether it be on the field or off the field. But the way he is inside the room, inside the building, the relationships he's already forged here, I mean, everything about him is old school football.
I mean, you can see, and I can see it every week when I talk to Garrett Wilson, right? You know, I interview him every week, and like when you bring up Rodgers, he gets giddy. He starts smiling. Like, yo, like what does the system look like? He's like, Aaron Rodgers is the system, right? And he starts smiling, right? So that lets you know that he's found a way in a total gap, because Aaron Rodgers is my age, to connect with guys that are that grew up totally different, that college experience is totally different, society and the world in which they grew up in is totally different, and he's finding ways to connect, right? And he's putting in the work. Like seeing him on there with the, you know, at the Knicks game, at the Rangers game, that had nothing about him doing that. He could have went there himself, sat in the suite, or went and hung out with some way higher profile people, but he was able to, you know, connect and bring those guys up to his world. You know what I'm saying? And he's still able to go down to their world because it's different levels and statuses. He's a different status star, different status of person, just simply also because his age and his fame. But he brought those guys up and gave them a look into his world, and yet he still is able to come to their world. That's what it's all about, right? We used to have Monday night at Bart's, right? We used to do all kind of goofy stuff. It wasn't about, you know, okay, I just wanted to watch it, you know, do that stuff. My wife was gracious enough to allow me to have people over, but then we get up and we get out and we go out to the clubs and stuff like that. I'm not even a clubbing type of guy. But I knew that when you get guys in that element, wink, wink. Well, when you get guys out of their element, it's able to allow you to connect people and let their guards down. Because the most important thing for me to ever know about my teammate is his why and his what. How can I motivate him if I don't know what motivates him? And I only know that by having intimate conversations with him, seeing him where he lets his guard down, and befriend you and know who they are and what they stand for and what they're all about. And, you know, coming from different places, different ethnic groups, different economic, social classes, you know, different regions of the world, different races and religions, that's hard, right? Because we all have like these built up stereotypes about each other, and you only break those walls down by, you know, communicating and talking to each other.
Yeah.
That's why O-line dinners. I mean, that was a huge thing for O-line dinners because it gives you the opportunity to get to know guys, and that plays a big part into it. You know, like when Willie Clone first got here, right? I knew of Willie as a player, you know, Pittsburgh and everything, but I didn't know Willie, and so to take the opportunity, and you know, this was 2013, 12, 13, somewhere around there. So I'd been around for a little while, but to sit down and be like, hey, Willie, like, come on over and we'll chat. And there was one night we did a big barbecue at the house, and it's just O-line, you know, and it's like nobody else. No, we're not going out. We're not big club people. That's facts.
Wink, wink.
Because like you let guys will really let their guard down when there's no cameras, there's no nothing. You're hanging out. And I remember we're sitting around the fire pit after dinner. We're all just hanging out, may have had a cigar or two. And Willie likes to take his shirt off.
Yeah.
And he's got a big old chain with a cross on it, right? Yep. And so there's Willie sitting in my backyard. And my son at the time, he had to be like 3 or 4, and he was heading off to bed. So he came out to say goodnight. And the look in his eyes was saw big Willie sitting there without a shirt on. But like, so then Willie gets to see, oh, you know, he's got kids, like, and so that's part of his why, you know, and you know, and then finding out about Willie and his story, and you know, the Bronx and his mom and everything.
Spanish. I thought he was black.
Puerto Rican.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah, see, you find things out.
Yeah,
but
Willie Cologne, I just learned last week.
Last week?
How'd you find that out
last week?
He's like, my last name's Cologne. I was like, black guys got all kind of that. I didn't know you Spanish.
So that, like, and that's something that, you know, I think is really important team building wise. And you see it out of Aaron, and, you know, getting to know guys, getting to know their story. And it's got to be tough.
Yeah.
I mean, I know my sister is 16 years younger than me, and I don't know what she's got going on.
These kids on TikTok, yada yada. Let's do a TikTok dance, like, bro.
I don't know what they're saying. The slang I can't get. Like
all cap.
Yeah, capital letters, capital grill. What are we talking about? So, to be able to do that connection, I think is something special. That it shows why Aaron Rodgers is Aaron Rodgers.
But in his football intelligence is freaking ridiculous.
Yeah, that's because half the people that play football now are stupid, man.
But
but he's really smart.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
Right. Even you got.
He can play till he's 50 just using his brain because these dudes are so dumb.
Yeah, but can we just focus on him? I know where you are with some of these cats, but the way he breaks things down, and you definitely can tell he's got an appetite for ball. When he gets on McAfee every week, he's talking about every game. What quarterbacks did in each situation.
He's Raymond.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean.
It's also a kid that also a guy that doesn't have a wife and kids. He's got so much time on his hands.
Yeah.
Could you imagine if you didn't have kids right around?
Time.
It's all you all the time.
Yeah, what am I going to spend my money on? But just me.
But how different. Okay, so the Jets are going to address the offensive line. We know that. But just having him under center, how different does it all look?
I mean, listen, it's not like we don't know what it looks like. We've seen it for 16 years in Green Bay, so we know what it looks like. It's special. That's why everybody was so excited, and we wanted to see could he duplicate that here, and how long will it take for him to get in a rhythm and a flow and stuff like that. Unfortunately, we never got to see it. It's crazy because like you wonder with the injury, and we thought that he maybe was going to try and come back. Does he play the preseason? Like, it's all those type of things, right? Like, do we know if he can take a hit? He's going to do it in the preseason? Because I thought that was the one positive thing for me to see, like, if he came back, was for him to get tackled and for him to believe in it. Mm-hmm. But now, they don't play and there's no contact in the preseason and guys don't play in the preseason. So we won't be able to know.
That's interesting. So you would have liked to see him play, they were out.
I just want him to get hit. Right,
yeah.
I want him to get tackled and say, "I'm
just
okay.
getting over that
and
hurdle."
I'm okay.
Yeah,
right. So now, like, you think you know, but you don't know until you actually get hit. And I was hoping that maybe we can get that hurdle out the way this year, so then going into next year, it'd be no doubt, no fear.
Because you hear about that, a lot of guys with knees when they get their knees repaired, it takes that first time being out and getting hit or making a cut and being like, all right, it's still good.
Yeah,
like I'm good. I got over that hump.
Or you hear that scar tissue break, and you're like, oh, it's just scar tissue. It's not hurt again. It's stuff just got to move around.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Do you think people more than ever are going to count him out now after an Achilles?
No.
40 coming back.
No.
You don't.
No. Listen, the dude didn't play for 4 years. Nobody even hits the quarterback anymore. Like, at this point, you're going to see quarterbacks play longer and longer and longer as long as they want to. Because simply because it's not like the old school, right? So, like, I always say, like, we always talk about this. Like, you can say he's 40. I'm saying he's 37. Because
those first 3 years.
Yeah, he didn't play. He got no mouth. Listen, I've seen guys that were 25 that was the oldest 25. Like I said, Ahmad Bradshaw was the oldest running back I've ever seen in football. This dude was like,
you got him raising his hand over
like
here.
an old rental car.
Years off of Mangini.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
That's a whole different podcast.
Right.
I mean, that was back when you're doing 2 days.
Junction Boys.
And it's one of those like old guys sitting on a couch. And I'm going to do it, but the guys right now, because they got rid of 2 days and everything, don't know the pain of putting on a wet knee brace. Because it's still wet from the sweat from the morning practice that you're putting it on for the afternoon practice.
Oh, stay up. Yeah, right. You telling people that's trying to make the team stay up. They coming in like a bat out of hell. Every play is you going to the ground. You just hear the coach, stay up. Like, yeah, whatever.
So different people's wear and tear is definitely a real thing.
I completely understand, and I got empathy for the fans when they say they don't like hearing we're close because it's been – the 13 years. So it's that dichotomy where they really are, but I know that from a fan perspective, it's like, you guys got to do it.
It's about luck. It's about luck, too. I mean, how many Super Bowl champions have we seen go from 6 back in the day when they only played 16 games, go from 6 to 10 to the Super Bowl? That was like the staple. Mm-hmm. Somebody go from 6 to 10, they make a couple free agent changes, come in 6-10 to the Super Bowl.
Right.
right? When we went to the AFC Championship, we were coming off of what? With Brett Favre and all that stuff, right?
How far we ended at 8-8?
Right, 8-8, and you end up in
Or 7-9, maybe. Something
right,
like
7-9, and you end up right next AFC Championship.
Right.
Like it happens like that. It's a small. It's not a big gap between going from good to great, right? It comes about winning some late games and winning some close games, right?
You guys were either
They
8-8 or 9-7, by the way.
Yeah, y'all.
Because
With
Pennington
Farley?
won a comeback player of the year. Remember that final game coming back? I think they won 10.
You guys.
I don't think we
You
won
guys
10
won
that
8.
year.
No, they won 10. Miami won the division
Yeah,
with 10.
2008 was when they won with
They were
the kitty cat.
Yeah, I think 9-7.
That's when they had the kitty cat.
I remember that Seattle game was tough.
Yeah,
So
is that when
is that the one
Sean
in
threw the
snow?
snowball?
Yes,
Yeah,
the
that's when
snow-
Sean, that's when Sean threw the snowball at the fan.
That was a tough one.
There was a lot of tough ones at the end there.
Yeah.
We don't need to go back to that.
Yeah, but that, but you guys go for 7-9, winning 4 games isn't that big of a difference. Just think, Atlanta, first Patriots game, Raiders, Chargers. That's all it takes. Those are all winnable games.
And I think the tough part is looking at from a fan side is, yeah, you can say, yeah, we're close and, right there knocking at the door. But when you get to a certain long-term issue and you're like, it's 13 years. We haven't been in the playoffs. Like you got that itch. And
It's
that's where,
it's the longest in the NFL, right?
yeah.
Yes.
I think it's longest in professional sports. Right
Damn.
now.
I think it's tied with the Buffalo Sabres.
Is it?
Yeah.
And so, like, when
You
you
would know the Buffalo Sabres.
Yeah, I know the Buffalo Sabres.
because it's from Buffalo, not Cleveland.
I played goalie growing up. Come on now.
So
You know
I
that.
think as a fan, like when you hear it that way, like, well, we're not close because it has been such a drought, and that's difficult because fans, they put their fandom to the test every week and every season. They come in, you have your high hopes and you want to do well, and when it doesn't, because you cheer and you can affect the games for home games, but in the end, it's the players still out there and the coaches who are ultimately getting the job done, and so you're rooting for something that you have very little control over, yet you're very passionate about it. So it's got to be tough after 13 years knowing that, like, well, maybe there's next year. You don't like that?
No, I'm saying, damn. You said 13. I'm like, damn.
Right?
I'm trying to think. That's my son is 10.
I think 24 is the year it turns.
I hope
My-
so. You
my
guys,
son-
you guys got
24
the AFC. You guys got the AFC South, man. Come on, man. That should be at least.
My son's never seen a playoff game.
Wow.
We'll change that next year. Our
But
technical director, Matt Sickoff, just walked in here. I think he wanted to be part of the podcast, the final one here.
saying wrap it
of the
up, B.
2023 season. But
Wrap it up, B.
we thank everybody for listening. Subscribe, rate, and review. And also for those watching on YouTube, bang the like button. We will come back throughout the offseason.